Chinese folklore features a rich variety of ghosts, monsters, and other supernatural creatures. According to traditional beliefs, a ghost is the spirit form of a person who has died. Ghosts are typically malevolent and will cause harm to the living if provoked. Many Chinese folk beliefs about ghosts have been adopted into the mythologies and folklore of neighboring East Asian cultures, notably Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Beliefs about ghosts are closely associated with Chinese ancestor worship, where much have been incorporated into Buddhism, and in turn influenced and created uniquely Chinese Buddhist beliefs about the supernatural. Traditionally, the Chinese believed that it was possible to contact the spirits of deceased relatives and ancestors through a medium. It was believed that the spirits of the deceased can help them if they were properly respected and rewarded. The annual Hungry Ghost Festival celebrated in China, including Hong Kong and Macau special administrative regions, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, and elsewhere in the Chinese diaspora, is dedicated to performing rituals to honor and remember the spirits of the dead. On this day, ghosts and other supernatural creatures come out from the underworld and move among the living. Families prepare food and other offerings and place them on a shrine dedicated to deceased relatives. Incense and paper money are burned and other rituals are performed in hopes that the spirits of the dead will protect and bring good luck to the family. Ghosts are described in classical Chinese texts and continue to be depicted in modern literature and movies. Mandarin Pinyin Gi is the general Chinese term for ghost, used in combination with other symbols to give related meanings, such as Gulao, literally ghost man, a Cantonese pejorative term for foreigners, and Mogwai, meaning devil. One characters such as Yan, meaning nightmare, also carry related meanings. Yan Wang, also called Yanlu Wang, is the sovereign of the underworld. He is also the judge of the underworld and decides whether the dead will have good or miserable future lives. Although ultimately based on the god Yama of the Hindu Vedas, the Buddhist Yan Wang has developed different myths and different functions from the Hindu deity. For Yan Wang is normally depicted wearing a Chinese judge's cap in Chinese and Japanese art. He sometimes appears on Chinese held banknotes. Zhong Kui is the vanquisher of ghosts and evil beings. Portraits of him were hung in Chinese houses at the end of the Chinese lunar year to scare away evil spirits and demons. He is depicted as a fierce man with a black face and a comic beard, brandishing a magic seed. Zhong Kui is said to be himself the ghost of a man who failed to pass the civil service examinations and committed suicide. He then became a ghost hunter. There is a story that the Emperor Xuanzong of Tang once dreamed that a small ghost stole the purse of the imperial consort. A larger ghost, Zhong Kui, captured the smaller one and returned the purse. There has been extensive interaction between traditional Chinese beliefs and the more recent Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Ancestor worship is the original basic Chinese religion. The core belief is that there is a continued existence after death. 7. It is thought that the soul of a deceased person is made up of yin and yang components, called hun and po, and the yin component po is associated with the grave and the yang component hun is associated with ancestral tablets. At death, the components split into 3 different souls. The po stays with the body to the grave, another goes to judgment, and the hun resides in an ancestral tablet. The po and hun are not immortal, and need to be nourished by offerings made by descendants. Eventually both the po and hun go to the underworld, although the hun goes to heaven first. Unlike in Western usages of the term, underworld has no negative connotation. 8. King Xuan of Zhou 827–783 BC, according to Chinese legend, executed his minister Chu Po on false charges even after being warned that Chu Po's ghost would seek revenge. 3 years later, according to historical chronicles, Chu Po's ghost shot and killed Xuan with a bow and arrow before an assembly of feudal lords. The Chinese philosopher Mozu 470–391 BC is quoted as having commented, If from antiquity to the present and since the beginning of man, there are men who have seen the bodies of ghosts and spirits and heard their voices, how can we say that they do not exist? If none have heard them and none have seen them, then how can we say they do? But those who deny the existence of the spirits say many in the world have heard and seen something of ghosts and spirits. Since they vary in testimony who are to be accepted as really having heard and seen them. Mozu said, as we are to rely on what many have jointly seen and what many have jointly heard, the case of Chupo is to be accepted. 9. Religious Taoism finally came together during the Han Dynasty 206 BC 220 AD, around the time Buddhism was introduced to China, and it rose to predominance during the Tang Dynasty 618–907 AD, which initially tolerated its coexistence. Reverence for nature and ancestor spirits is common in popular Taoism. Banned during the Cultural Revolution along with all other religions, religious Taoism is undergoing a major revival today. 10. And it is the spirituality followed by about 30%, 400 million of the total Chinese population. Buddhism was introduced into China in the 1st centuries and rapidly became popular with its belief in a continuous cycle of rebirth and more complex ghost beliefs, although the older beliefs lingered. The entry of Buddhism into China was marked by interaction and syncretism with Taoism, in particular 12. Originally seen as a kind of foreign Taoism, Buddhism scriptures were translated into Chinese using the Taoist vocabulary. 13. Elements of pre-Han Dynasty mythologies such as those in Shan Ha Jing were adapted into these belief systems, as they developed in the case of Taoism, or were assimilated into Chinese culture in the case of Buddhism. On the other hand, elements from the teachings and beliefs of these systems became incorporated into Chinese mythology. For example, the Taoist belief of a spiritual paradise became incorporated into mythology as the place where immortals and deities dwell. Citation needed. The state of ancestor veneration in modern-day China is reported to be declining in urban areas. However, in rural areas of China, as well as Taiwan, ancestor worship and its practices can still be commonly found. Tumor ghosts Yinggi have large gators on whose pus they must feed. Ghosts with excessive means Duo Kai Gi. Ghosts hoping for offerings Zizigui live on sacrificial offerings, usually from their descendants. Ghosts hoping for leavings or ghosts that inhale energy Zikigui eat any human leftovers, and can even devour the chi of living beings. Ghosts of great powers Dashigi are powerful rulers of ghosts like Yakshas, Rakshasas, Pishamchas etc., who are perpetually aggressive and violent. The literary term hero among ghosts Gaixian refers to a person who has died a heroic death. One particular type of ghost, the Chang. Chang is referenced in the 4-character classical idiom Why is your chained? In folklore, the Chang ghost is said to be the ghost of a person who died of a tiger bite, who then assists the tiger by luring to it further victims. This idiom then translates literally to serving as a Chang for the tiger, or more loosely as serving as the tiger's accomplice. Used metaphorically, it refers to a person helping a villain commit evil, with the implication that the person was initially a disinterested party or was even previously a victim of the villain. Fengshenbang, the investiture of the gods, is one of the major vernacular Chinese epic fantasy novels written in the Ming Dynasty. The story is set in the era of the declining Shang Dynasty and rise of the Zhou Dynasty. It intertwines numerous elements of Chinese mythology, including gods and goddesses, immortals and spirits. The novel is prominent in modern Chinese culture and has been adapted into numerous television series and video games, even in Japanese popular culture. 33. Journey to the West is one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature. Originally published anonymously in the 1590s during the Ming Dynasty, its authorship has been ascribed to the scholar Wu Chengyun since the 20th century. It tells the story of the monk Xuanzang and his quest to bring back Buddhist scriptures from Vulture Peak in India. Although some of the obstacle Xuanzang encounters are political and involve ordinary human beings, they more frequently consist of run-ins with various goblins and ogres, many of whom turn out to be the earthly manifestations of heavenly beings whose sins will be negated by eating the flesh of Xuanzang or animal spirits with enough Taoist spiritual merit to assume semi-human forms. 34. Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio is a collection of nearly 500 mostly supernatural tales, written by Pu Songling in classical Chinese during the early Qing dynasty. The compilation was first circulated in manuscript form, before it was published posthumously. Sources differ in their account of the year of publication. One source claims the strange tales were published by Pu's grandson in 1740. However, the earliest existing print version today dates to 1766. Pu is believed to have completed the majority of the tales sometime in 1679, though he could have added entries as late as 1707. In the television series The X-Files 1996 Season 3 Episode 19 entitled Hell Money, a story of Chinese ghost culture is spun around a black market organ procurement scheme.